Session 6, Dialogue. Welcome to our 6th session, where we will explore the craft of dialogue. What is a script? A script is a blueprint from which a film is made. It is never used for public consumption like a novel or a poem. It is between 90 and 120 pages long and consists of stage directions and dialogue. It is the crafting of scenes to create an evocative, rich story for the screen. Whenever I teach a class of students, they are always surprised that our session on dialogue comes far into the course and not at the beginning. There is a common misconception that dialogue is a script. In truth, when it comes to writing a screenplay, dialogue comes last. If I can be a little extreme in making my point, dialogue should only be used as a last resort. The writer uses dialogue when she or he cannot find action or a filmic image that conveys the meaning of the scene. To illustrate my point, I would like you to have a look at To illustrate my point, I would like you to have a look on YouTube at I'm going to have to do it again. Sorry. To illustrate my point, I would like you to have a look at Sam Peckinpah's film The Wild Bunch. This film is set within the context of the last days of the Wild West, where a bunch of outlaws try to hold on to the old ways of the gun is the law against a rapidly changing world. I would particularly like you to look at the opening scenes and the closing scenes. If you don't manage to see the entire film, these scenes are available on good old YouTube. In the opening scene, there is no dialogue until about 7 minutes into the film, when the main protagonist says, "If anyone moves, kill 'em." In the closing scenes, lasting 9 minutes, there are about 5 lines of dialogue. Instead, Peckinpah uses everything he can in the filmmaker's toolkit to convey the meaning, the purpose and the resolution of each scene: visual imagery, performance editing and juxtaposition, sound and music. In one scene at the end of the film, the Wild Bunch arm themselves and walk with deadly purpose out of the village to confront the Mexican bandits. Tension increases because there is a Mexican band playing romantic music. This tells us 2 things. Firstly, there is a pretense that everything is okay and normal when it isn't. Secondly, the Mexican band hints to the Wild Bunch, the gringos according to them, that they are hugely outnumbered and out of bounds. The Mexicans don't verbally threaten them, they suggest threat by using their music to menace the Americans. It is worth noting that the characters in the film are men of few words, men of action, and so it stands to reason that the film has little dialogue. Maybe that's why westerns were so popular on the screen in the first place, and indeed the form is enjoying something of a renaissance with films such as No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood. Westerns are so inherently visual. But what about films which are about characters who talk a lot, who are intellectual, who are thinkers and not doers, who are compelled to express emotion? Does my rule that dialogue is a last resort apply even for films such as these? I would argue yes, dialogue still comes last. As you will observe from such films, the characters are still doing something, whether racing in a taxi to get to the airport or hanging out the washing. I am often asked about the film Pulp Fiction, and yes, Quentin Tarantino does use an awful lot of dialogue, but the dialogue doesn't drive the scene, the action does. During the scenes where the main protagonists famously argue about beef burgers as they embark on an assassination, the point of the scene is to kill someone, and the dialogue is used to convey that these men are such brutal assassins they are happy to prattle on when they are on their way on their murder mission. It also tells us that these assassins are not just killers, they're opinionated and intelligent too. What are the rules of dialogue? Allow me to list them for you first, and then we will go through them one by one. You must keep dialogue to a minimum throughout the script. Each speech Each speech must be economical and say a lot with a little. Short sentences and short speeches. Your character must say something intelligent and meaningful, but it must sound natural. Your dialogue must be imaginative. The dialogue must progress the scene. Your dialogue must avoid exposition. The dialogue must not convey factual information or directly tell the audience how the character is thinking or feeling. It must be setting-led. It must be character-led. It must not speak the truth. It must disguise the truth. Do not confuse accents as characterization. If you don't need it, cut it. Turning to the second rule on my list, dialogue must be kept to a minimum throughout the script. Dialogue is one tool used to convey the meaning of the script. It must have direction. It must not repeat itself, and it must reach the scene's turning point as quickly as possible. Therefore, dialogue is not conversation. It is not real life. In real life, we can happily prattle on about the latest test match or buying a pair of shoes for a couple of hours or more. That's the length of a feature film. In real life, conversation is not economic. In fact, we deliberately try to prolong conversation so that we can reaffirm and develop our relationships with family and friends. In real life, we repeat ourselves, we go off on tangents, we and err, we stumble, grasp for the wrong word, put things inarticulately, and very often fail to make a point. I have certainly envied and admired people who say little, but when they do speak, they have a point to make that moves the conversation or discussion forward. In some respects, those individuals are closest to screen characters. My next rule is closely linked. Dialogue must be economic, meaning you must use short sentences and short speeches. Always think of the most economic way of saying what your character must say. Always edit your dialogue with economy paramount in your mind. Why have your character say, "I have so much work to do, have you seen my in tray?" instead of, "Have you seen my in tray?" Keep editing, and remember your actor will act overworked and tired. There's no need for you to spell it out. My fourth rule is your character must say something intelligent but make it sound natural. Your dialogue must be precise. It must add value to the scene, but you can and should use a rhythm of speech so that it doesn't sound like a lecture. Does a mother have to say to her teenage daughter before she goes out on her first date, "My beloved daughter"? You are changing from a girl to a woman, and whilst that pleases me, it makes me sad that you won't need me for much longer, so I must learn to let you go. Or can she stroke her daughter's shoulders, kiss her on the top of the head, and say, "Have fun tonight"? In fact, in this example, you don't need any dialogue at all, do you? My fifth rule is your dialogue must be imaginative. This follows on from my previous point. Psychologists and anthropologists tell us that we use body language and signals and sounds to communicate. Then so too can your character. Does a character have to say, "I don't want to wash up, I'm too tired"? Or can a character just groan at the sight of a pile of washing up? Can one character not say anything as the other character prattles on because they are eating spaghetti or busily fixing a car or watching a football match? Can a character use signals and body language instead of using a verbal response? My next rule is the dialogue must progress the scene. All scenes must have a point to them, otherwise they are surplus to requirements and should be cut. Each character within the scene has a goal, whether it is to get to the washing on the line or they want to kill someone. The sooner you reach the turning point or the moment of pure conflict, the better. Let me return to the Wild Bunch. In the opening scenes, the Wild Bunch, disguised as soldiers, ride purposely into town and dismount and hide. With a couple of comrades, the main protagonist enters the bank. It is then that he delivers his line, "If anybody moves, kill 'em." Up until that moment, the objective of the scene was to infiltrate the town and enter the bank unrecognised. They have fulfilled their objective by the time he delivers his line. Now the objective has changed. They must rob the bank and escape the town, and they are prepared to kill in order to achieve that objective. All that information is relayed through that one line of dialogue. It therefore progresses the scene from the first objective and its conclusion to the establishment of the second objective. Rule number 7. Your dialogue must avoid exposition at all costs. Of course, the purpose of your scene is to convey information, reach a point of crisis or conflict and bring about a resolution that sets up the next scene, but there is no need to spell it out. Let's imagine a short scenario where two characters are discussing a third character. Character A needs to say, "Have you heard about my mother? She's just got divorced after 30 years married to my father, who was always telling her what to do, and she never fought back. Now she's had the courage to leave him, and she started a new life, gone to university and made new friends." And character B says, "Goodness me, that is amazing. You must be both shocked and proud of her. But what about your dad? How will he cope?" Instead, you must disguise the information using naturalism. Character A says, "She's left the miserable old bastard." Character B says, "About time." Character A replies, "And she's turned student honours. History of art, if you please. Going for coffee with all them students half her age." Character B looks at character A with concern on her face. Character A knows what her friend is thinking and adds, "And it's Muggins here who has to go to Dad's and cook him his tea." Rule number 8. Dialogue must be appropriate to setting. Use grammar and vocabulary appropriate to the environment occupied by your characters, and use cultural, social and economic references relevant to your characters. This is where you need to tune in your ear for dialogue, and the more fine-tuned the better. Does your character say dinner or tea or supper when referring to their evening meal? Be consistent and accurate. Rule number 9 is closely connected. Dialogue must not be appropriate to the... let's do that again. Rule number 9 is closely connected. Dialogue must be appropriate to the character. Each character has their own history of experience and their own unique point of view which drives them through the narrative. There must be two working class Indian... do that sentence again. There might be two working class Indian women in your scene. They live in the same street and they work in the same supermarket, but one is timid and one is aggressive. The aggressive one uses swear words to be provocative, but the other would never in a million years use bad language and finds it shocking. Rule number 10. Dialogue must not speak the truth, it must disguise the truth. How many times has a girlfriend said, "Do I look fat in this skirt?" And how many times have we replied, "Yes"? None, right? The same applies to dialogue. In life as in film, people and characters never speak the truth, at least not directly. Or let me rephrase that. We only speak the truth when forced to do so, and this too is reflected in films. As you will observe from many, many films and television dramas, it is only when the conflict has reached its peak, its crisis point, that characters finally are forced to tell the truth. Rule 11. Do not confuse accents with characterisation. Accents are appropriate when a character is in some way defined by the place he or she comes from. Use accents to tell us something about the character. Don't think that by giving a character an accent you have defined what is going on inside them. I'd like to finish my lecture by giving you some minor hints and tips, then we will get on with some exercises. 1. Avoid one character always calling another character by their name. We rarely use each other's names in life, and so it sounds unnatural on screen. We are far more likely to say, "Can I take you out to dinner?" Not, "Can I take you out to dinner, Michelle? Would you like to come out this evening, Michelle?" 2. Avoid extraneous words such as "well" in your sentences. "Doctor, are you going to tell me the truth?" sounds sharper than "Well, doctor, are you going to tell me the truth?" 3. Avoid telling your actors how to perform. Only use bold or italics or stage directions if you need to clarify the meaning of the dialogue. Remember, your actors are better at acting than you are, so let them find the right way of expressing your dialogue. I once attended a wonderful course by the television writer Michael Eaton. He wrote a great drama called Fellow Traveller, and in one scene 2 men are standing at a bus stop in the rain. One says to the other, "Nice weather." The director of the film was American and was confused over the cultural subtleties, asking, "What, does he like rain?" So Michael had to add the stage direction, "ironic," to avoid further misunderstandings. 4. Check that all your characters' dialogue is distinctive by covering up the name of each character talking during a scene. Can you tell them apart? 5. Speak your dialogue out loud. It always sounds different from how it sounds in your head. You will notice awkward rhythms and word choices far more easily this way. I think that's quite enough rules for one day. I'd like to pause for a moment and reflect on one of my favourite lines of dialogue, but not from a film, from William Shakespeare's Cleopatra. After her death, Charmaine laments her passing with the line, "Now boast thee, death, in thy possession lies a lass unparalleled." Would it not be possible to write a whole essay on the meaning and content implied in that one sentence, thus perfectly illustrating that when it comes to dialogue, less is definitely more? Let's do some exercises. These exercises won't teach you how to write dialogue. For that you must practice, practice, practice. Use these methods and simply write dialogue in your spare time, just as an artist sketches in their sketch pad. Exercise 1. Write a scene of 2 pages or thereabouts where one character speaks and the other doesn't. Instead, use body language and action to convey what is going on in their head. Exercise 2. Write a scene between 2 pages and 4 pages long that includes 4 characters who have gathered for a drink after a funeral. Remember, whilst they might be from the same place, they have their own unique view on life and their own history on which to draw upon. Exercise 3. Write a scene of about 2 or 3 pages where 2 people declare their love for each other without saying the words, "I love you." There is a wonderful example of this in the film Sense and Sensibility, adapted for the screen by Emma Thompson and directed by Ang Lee. But no cheating, only look at the scene after you have completed the exercise. Exercise 4. Now rewrite your love scene using no dialogue at all. For your 5th and final exercise, please write 3 scenes from the script idea you have selected to develop. Go through the rules and tips before embarking on this exercise. Film of the Week. Kes, directed by Ken Loach. Take particular note of how the dialogue represents the characters. They all come from a very distinctive part of the country, but have subtle differences in how they talk. Portfolio of ideas. Following my comments from last week, please rewrite your synopsis. Ends.